Okay, welcome all to our Global GI platform. We are proud to welcome our remarkable voice in the inflammatory bowel disease community, a tireless activist who brought awareness and representation to South Asian people who's living with IBD. We are excited to welcome Mrs. Tina. Welcome, ma'am.
Hi, everyone. My name is Tina Aswani-Omprakash. I am a Crohn's patient advocate living with an ostomy. I've had Crohn's disease for almost 2 decades, about 19 and a half years. And for the first 12 years, I lived in shame and silence. In the last 7.5 years, I started doing advocacy work through my blog, ownyourcrohns.com, which really led to a lot of outreach in different communities of color across the world, whether that was Latin America, South America, Africa, the Middle East, East Asia, and also, of course, the South Asian community. There were a lot of people reaching out about the cultural stigmas, the cultural challenges, the nuances that they were dealing with psychosocially. And they really felt like I had touched on a topic that felt like it was coming very close to home for them. In more recent years, I've co-founded South Asian IBD Alliance, also known as SAIA. It's a 501c3 charitable organization in the United States with a global impact. We do a lot of patient education, physician development and education, as well as research. And we are really a collaboration of patients and physicians, really all kinds of clinicians, whether they're dietitians, mental health therapists, or doctors, working together to really advance the cause of South Asian IBD.
So I know you are the heart of the South Asian IBD Alliance. So how is that playing a part right now?
So that's a great question. When Own Your Crohn started in 2018, I think very quickly I began to realize that, okay, that this is, I'm just one voice, and there's many people suffering from the same sort of silence and shame, and that people needed a lot more support than I, as one person, could provide. And there were doctors reaching out, but there were also other patients that felt empowered to now start speaking because they were like, hey, there's somebody else doing it. I can do it too now. So more and more South Asian voices started popping up, and I was really happy to see it. And many of them were reaching out to me. So a few of us joined hands. Sharon from the UK, Madhura from India, and I joined hands to develop something called IBD Desis, which means South Asian IBD. And that just turned out to be a Facebook support group. I never thought it would turn into much more than that, but that was early 2021 that we launched that support group. And by April 2021, we started to do social media work outside of the support group. We now have over 1,700 patients and caregivers. I would say 95% of South Asian descent, but we welcome everyone. After we started doing some of this advocacy work under the IBD Desis umbrella, a lot of doctors reached out. They were like, I want to get involved. I want to work with you all. What you're doing is really important and really needed for our community. So we banded together as patients and clinicians to form South Asian IBD Alliance, which is also known as SAIA for short. And that's really how our nonprofit organization came about. And since then, we have had many, many more patients from Pakistan, from Zimbabwe, from South Africa, from the Middle East, from East Asia, come forward and say that they're relating heavily to our cultural stigmas. And they do volunteer work for us, and they, share their stories, and they also help other patients in our support group. So we've grown into a pretty robust patient team, and we also have a number of doctors working on research with us, so patient-centric research. And we also have doctors working with us on doctor-related events like HCP events, healthcare professional events, where we can build more awareness around what's going on in our community and how to deliver care that's more culturally sensitive, culturally appropriate, whether that's in the West or even in South Asia. So in South Asia, and you're probably aware of this, there's so many different cultures, traditions, religions, and it's important to be culturally aware of, say you're a Hindu doctor and you have a Muslim patient, you have to be aware of the different sensitivities in each community and what each patient needs. So we're really doing a lot of work in sort of advancing cultural sensitivity for IBD related care.
So, typically in your day, when you go for a conference or when people come and approach you, how do you handle them? Like, how do you manage them and how do you invite them to your organization?
Sure, that's a great question. So, at conferences, there's a number of physicians, whether they're South Asian or not, who do approach, whether it's me or one of the doctors or patients on our board. They do often approach us asking how they can get involved. It is a bit of a vetting process. We try to understand what are the doctor's interests. So, obesity may be an area of interest, or extraintestinal manifestations or pregnancy. And we sort of think about how can we involve this clinician in something that SAIA is working on. Is it a patient education, patient awareness talk? Is it a digital resource that we can build with the doctor? Sort of recently we did a pregnancy and fertility talk, but we also did 2 resources to help patients and their families understand, how and when can a patient get pregnant, fertility, fecundity concerns, both for men and women, and also concerns around having surgery, having complex IBD, so having a J pouch, having an ostomy, having fistula, stricture. How does a woman go through labor and delivery with some of these complexities of IBD? And we will work with some of the doctors, some of the doctors who specialize in that area to develop a resource, medically review it, and then release it on our website, social media. So oftentimes we're looking for more doctors to review our content and make sure we're putting out the best content out there. Sometimes it'll be for talks. Sometimes it'll be for research that we're doing. We might see, oh, this person has a real interest in research in the South Asian IBD arena. What can we work on with that person? Is it clinical trials? Or is it, the epidemiology of the disease? So there's different routes that we can go, but it's always best to approach us and we can see how to get you involved. The best way really is through membership. We have created a membership portal in the last 6 or 8 months where, if a physician or, mental health therapist or dietitian signs up for membership, we can easily think about how do we work with this person or involve them in SAIA activities as a SAIA member. So that's the best way. Approach us, email us, but also sign up for membership so that we know you're committed to the cause.
So, as a leader and as an advocate, how does a day in your life look like?
Also another great question. So, one, I'm a patient first. So there's often a lot of medical care that I have to take care of course. Excuse me. But a day in my life also looks like working. I'm working quite a bit in terms of supporting other patients, making sure our projects are getting done, whether they're talks, whether they're research, whether they're resources, whether it's building a membership platform or our newsletters. So I'm often working on different things that SAIA really values, and we know that our constituents, meaning our clinicians or patients, really value. value in terms of content. But I am also interfacing with a number of other nonprofit groups, other physicians who want to partner with us, other companies that might want to partner with us. And I'm often talking to them about different partnership opportunities. So that's another thing. If you're a nonprofit or if you're a physician and you want to partner with us on an initiative, an educational event, or a research a paper or activity. These are all things you can approach us about, and I do take a lot of calls to discuss whether this is appropriate. We often this is a collective board decision when we pursue a partnership opportunity. So there's definitely different ways to collaborate with us. We do a lot of work in partnership, whether that's events, research, or even patient awareness talks. We think that it's always better to do things in collaboration to get the word out to more and more communities. And we also think that it's just better to be more inclusive of different communities and different groups of people. So feel free to contact us anytime for partnership as well.
I know that you have been diagnosed with the IBD at the age of 22. So
Yes.
what was that one turning point which made you, okay, let's start this initiative and break the stigma?
I think it wasn't, the one thing was probably that running those support groups for the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation and them nominating me for the award. But really, it was more than that. It was like this 4-year-long process, to be honest with you. In 2014, I started seeing other patients advocating on Twitter, now known as X. And I was like, I could bring a lot to this. I've had so many surgeries, so many experiences with J pouch, ostomy, fistula, etc., all these complications. I can really help out. But at the time, my family and my husband, my in-laws were just like, oh my God, what are you talking about? Like, this is going to be social suicide for you. And I think you understand that. Like, it affects the family and it affects like the way people look at us and your reputation as a family, as a couple, all of that. So, and it's also putting your trauma out there for others to experience and also relate to. But I think when I first brought it up in 2014, it was just a seed. At the time, it was just a seed. And as the years went on, and in 2016, I came into remission for the first time in 10 years since my diagnosis. And it was after many surgeries, many fistulas, etc. And I said to myself, what do I do with my life now? I had a Wall Street career. I used to work here in New York in finance and banking. And, I lost that due to this disease. Like it was just too much with this disease. And I was like, how do I rebuild my life having been through all of these surgeries, almost 24 surgeries? How does one pick up their life now that they're seeing remission? And I think it took me a couple of years to figure that out, but I really needed to do something meaningful with my life and something where I give back to the community. I realized after a lot of soul searching, I don't want anybody to go through what I went through. I live in America, I live in New York, and I recognize that, and people tell me all the time, you have the best care in the world. And I agree, yet I nearly died from this disease 4 different times. My disease is very severe, and I recognize that. And I recognize that if I have the opportunity to give back, that's what will make me feel like I have accomplished something in my life, not going back into finance, not, running this rat race of keeping up with the Joneses, so to speak. It's more that I want to help people and help people recognize it's time to get a diagnosis. It's time to go on treatment. All of these things can improve my outcomes and lead to less disability. That's what matters to me.
So I know you went through a lot and the social stigma associated with the IBD. So if you have to give one advice to the South Asian population people, especially, because they are culturally, emotionally, when they're going through a tough process, they won't be able to come out, okay, I have this disease, and how should I manage it? Or what is one advice I should take it along with myself?
Yeah. First of all, there's absolutely no pressure to talk to the whole world about it like I do.
Yes.
Absolutely no pressure. But the one thing I would say that it's very, very important to seek a timely diagnosis. So if you delay, let's say you're bleeding for months on end, in the toilet, let's say you're having significant abdominal cramping, you're losing a lot of weight, 5, 10 kgs, even 10, 20 pounds. If you're losing that with a short period of time and you're malnourished, fatigued, cannot work, cannot perform your duties as a family member, it's really important to seek a diagnosis. Whether that's going through your primary care doctor to see your GP, to see a gastroenterologist, you have to get a referral to a gastroenterologist. And I know sometimes this is a difficult pill to swallow, but a colonoscopy is usually necessary to make a diagnosis. And I know those are very stigmatized in our community too. But we have to recognize that having a colonoscopy done can often reveal active disease, or it could be a sister disease like IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, that could be causing some of your symptoms. It's very important to distinguish between IBS and IBD. They're two distinct conditions, but also related. One, meaning IBD is more of an immune system dysfunction that needs to be regulated through medication, whereas IBS can be treated, with medication, but also with diet and lifestyle. You can also just make sure that you get the timely diagnosis so you can have the timely treatment, because what happens with IBD is that it can be a very disabling condition if you don't get it treated in time. Oftentimes, people are homebound, close to the toilet all the time, and feel like this disease is taking over their lives. They're unable to work, unable to take care of their children or their spouse, or their parents even. And it's very, very challenging. It's oftentimes just better to talk to a doctor, tell them your symptoms. That's going to be held in confidence. Nobody needs to know, but it's very, very important to get that diagnosis. The other point that I would add is when you're dealing with this, it's important to seek out communities like our IBD Daisies community. We allow patients to post anonymously, even their caregivers to post anonymously, and we will provide whatever support we can. If it's something about navigating your disease, advocating for yourself in the doctor's office, we can help with that. We can also help support through some of the emotional challenges and psychosocial challenges that happen with this disease.
So basically, if the person is reaching you out, do you think the research and the education that you provide to the family has shown a difference in how they handle the disease?
That's a wonderful question. I'm glad you brought it up. Yes, I do believe that the patient education that we're doing has really impacted a lot of patients and caregivers. It's even impacted physicians. I'll tell you how. In the beginning, when we started our community 4 years ago, almost nobody wanted to take a biologic. They were scared. They were very, very scared of medications, especially immune mediating medication that can sort of shift the way your immune system is behaving so that it settles down Crohn's or ulcerative colitis, IBD. So over these last 4 years, we have really seen a shift in terms of, hey, my doctor's recommending this biologic. I'm a little bit scared, but this group has helped me feel like, okay, I can do this too. Many of you all are on biologics and you're doing a lot better. I want to get better too. There's a huge shift in the way that they're talking about medication, huge shift in the way that they're talking about diet. So many times patients will come into our group, even their fathers or mothers. I want a diet plan for my child. I want to know what I can eat, what I can't eat. There is no set diet for IBD. Oftentimes, doctors recommend the Mediterranean diet. That may not be applicable to South Asians. We want to know how to eat our dals and chutneys and dosas, and you know what I mean? We want to know how to eat our spicy food and, fit in with our community, with our families and our friends. Um, I would say a lot of times we often tell patients there's no one diet that suits every single patient, but you have to sort of experiment. Small amounts, you can try small amounts of dosa to see if it suits you. Maybe make a chutney that's less spicy, see if it suits you, the mint or the coriander chutney, and make it a little less spicy. Things like that you can alter, try small amounts. If it seems to suit you, then maybe increase the amount a little bit more next time. This way you can sort of figure out this food suits me, that food doesn't suit me. But then the other thing to keep in mind is that as you treat your disease, as you start getting better with medication, you may be able to open up your diet. So it's important not to be afraid. If that chutney did not suit me when I had a flare up, maybe it'll suit me in remission. And so it's important to retry once your disease symptoms calm down to see if the food suits you, and so that you get all your nutrition. These are the kinds of tips we share with our patients. They're more practical, everyday tips, and we are actually seeing people own those tips, personalize them for themselves. So we have seen that it's made a difference. And it's not just in South Asians in South Asia. So not just in India, Pakistan, Nepal, Sri Lanka, Afghanistan, Bangladesh, all those countries, Maldives. It's also, we are seeing it in the diaspora. Our diaspora is the biggest diaspora in the world, and South Asians have the largest population in the world, 2 billion people. So in the United States, in UK, in Canada, Australia, even in places like Germany, Zimbabwe, South Africa, Ireland, we have all these statistics on our website. Who is accessing our resources? Who's accessing our educational videos? We're even seeing that doctors at institutions are joining our Facebook Live discussions to learn about pregnancy, to learn about fistulizing disease, these complex aspects of disease that they are now starting to see in like India and Pakistan. So we are actually seeing doctors in South Asia and the Middle East starting to join our lives and asking questions and interacting.
So talking about the resources, I know in US we have different people taking care of different things, meaning a GI comes into a play, a primary care physician comes into a play, a nutritionist comes into a play. But what do you think when you go back to like a South Asian population, do they have these resources?
So that's what SAIA, that's the gap that SAIA is trying to fill, is when we do our live educational programming, for instance, and let's say it's on mental health, we will specifically talk about what are the mental health challenges in our community. For us, it might be related to ethnic diet. It might be related to, can we get married with this disease? How do we go for higher education with this disease? Every community has different concerns, and some overlap, yes, but these are like some of the top concerns we hear about. Ethnic diet, higher education, getting a job, a good job, getting married. These are the top concerns we usually hear about psychosocially from the South Asian community. I'm just telling you anecdotally. And we also base it in research. So some of the research we've done shows that South Asians have 5.5 times the rates of post-traumatic stress with IBD than the white Caucasian population. Where is that coming from? cultural stigma, from psychosocial stressors, and, societal stressors, if that makes sense. So when we're giving a mental health talk, we're building all those societal stressors into the talk. How do you deal with it? We have a patient talking about their experience. We have clinicians talking about how do you sort of get over these hurdles. It's through mental health therapy. It's very, very hard to find providers who are culturally sensitive. I know not everybody wants to hear that, but it's very hard. And I've experienced it myself over these last 2 decades of living with Crohn's. But things are shifting. In the last few years, I have seen more dietitians who are not from our community start talking about our foods, start learning about our foods. I have seen more mental health therapists recognizing how bad the trauma is in our community related to the stigma. So they're talking about this, they're approaching this, the topics of marriage, the topics of higher education. They're approaching these topics. And I think it's because we're building that awareness around cultural sensitivity in our community.
So I know you said there is a difference in the white population as well as our South Asian population. So do you have a different type of educations, or you just educate them based on their gaps? Like, for example, a white Caucasian male can come and say, I'm emotionally depressed because I have been facing this disease. But a South Asian population can come and say, okay, so I have been diagnosed with disease. I don't know where to start from. So how do you handle these difference in the population? Is there anything specific for, especially for South
Absolutely.
Asian people?
Absolutely. I think, when South Asian patients are first diagnosed, it's very important to recognize that there might be cultural challenges in the mix. And so what we tell patients often is find out about diet, find out about medications. The number one question we get is diet, diet, diet. Find out if you can see a dietitian. Find out if they can, help you modify some of the recipes so you can feel comfortable with eating. The other thing is work with a mental health therapist. And oftentimes there are South Asian therapists out there. There's multiple sites like Brown Girl Therapy, South Asian therapists. There's a whole bunch of South Asian therapists in the United States now that are focusing on some of the challenges in our community, especially with immigration, diaspora, et cetera, because that all plays into this too. The different challenges we face, the racism we face, all of this plays into our diagnostics as well, unfortunately. So we often refer patients to see a therapist, to get a dietitian. We make specific recommendations. We also make sure that the patient feels comfortable with their doctor. Do they feel like they can trust their doctor? Do they feel like they have a good relationship with their doctor? A big concern that we hear from our community is they come to the patient group asking for a second opinion on what the doctor says. What does that mean? They're not trusting their doctor, right? So we start asking them questions. What would make you trust a doctor more? What would help you? Maybe it's time to get another opinion from a doctor because we can't give medical advice, right? So these are some unique considerations we've seen in the South Asian community when patients first get diagnosed, or parents of children who get diagnosed. They're really struggling with trust, with understanding what diet they can eat, and how do they manage the different psychosocial stressors. So those are the top 3 challenges we see. And so we guide based on that, how patients should navigate their care.
Okay. So initially, when you were diagnosed with the IBD, in the first 10 years, you were keeping everything to yourself. Did you feel like, okay, this support group is, sorry, let me rephrase the question. So you have been diagnosed with the IBD for the first 10 years when you didn't have any support group. Did you feel like a group like SAIA should have been there so that it would have helped you a lot?
Yeah, so The first 12 years that I didn't speak up about my disease, actually, my mom put me in support groups, hospital support groups, ostomy support groups. She actually made me start seeing a therapist. I wouldn't say the therapist understood the South Asian concerns. She was not South Asian. And I don't think education back then was culturally sensitive. Um, and even the support groups that I went to, while I could relate to some of their challenges, there was so much cultural that I could not relate to, in the sense that they were not talking about my foods. They were not talking about my holidays. How do I eat during Diwali? How do I eat during Thanksgiving? Because that's my holiday too, being South Asian American. How do I do all of that? No one was talking about those kinds of things. Um, Folks were not talking about marriageability. In fact, in these support groups, I started to see women who were saying, oh, they got married without any issues, that their partner accepts them. And I started thinking, what is going on here? Like, why do I feel like I am not deserving of a partner just because I have this condition? I think the support groups I went to the first 12 years of my journey made me realize that there was a cultural difference between me and many of the white and black people that were attending these support groups. I never saw anyone Indian or Pakistani or any kind of South Asian. And I was beginning to wonder, like, my family has this disease. My father passed away from it. My aunt passed away from it. How come I'm not seeing any Indian folks? And then I think all of these things, all of this soul searching led me to think, wow, if I had the culturally appropriate, culturally sensitive resources, my journey would have been completely different from the very beginning. I would have, one, felt supported. Two, I wouldn't have felt so isolated and so alone in this journey. And three, I would have gotten more timely care. I would have sought a diagnosis sooner. I would have gone on a biologic sooner. My family just kept saying, no, 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 we can't trust these biologics. They have so many side effects. If I had other people that I could hear from, I feel like the delays in my care would not have existed. And I started to recognize, like, what if I could help change that? I'm just one person. We have a whole team of people within SAIA that are working towards this. But it made me realize that people's journeys and their outcomes as patients can look completely different if they are working with culturally sensitive providers, if they have resources like SAIA is providing, if they have a support group like SAIA is providing. So that made me sort of realize, okay, Tina, you can do something about this. And that's where I think SAIA came from.
It's really good to know more about SAIA actually, because certain people don't know where to go, how to get a proper reach and say, hey, so I'm facing this. So there is some good things. And the main stuff is, how do you think the rural population all over the world, especially in India, can reach out to SAIA?
I think the beautiful thing is the world has become that much smaller because of social media and the internet. A lot of people are finding us. A lot of people, every day we're getting messages through our website, folks joining our Facebook community, through our social media. Reach out. We're here for you. We're happy to help, but please don't sort of live in shame. We are here to help you through this diagnosis. We encourage you to come join us, get the support that you need. We welcome you. We welcome you and your families to help you sort of deal with these stigmas, help you sort of come out of your shell and feel more comfortable with this diagnosis.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much for sharing your story, your journey, and thank you so much for bringing this awareness in the field of IBD. If you have anything else to state, like say to our viewers, just give us a good final endpoint for the interview.
Absolutely. So I would just say, there is the only shame is not seeking the support. This disease is growing by leaps and bounds in the South Asian community. We need to do everything we can to have that supportive structure and make sure that we're helping one another navigate this disease. Through community, we can work together to sort of get through this disease and live a better life, live a fuller life. I would suggest following our platforms. You can look up SAIA on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, as well as Twitter, also known as X. You can also join our Facebook community. It's called SAIA's IBD Desis on Facebook, and that is a completely private and closed support group just for patients and caregivers. And you can also reach out to us through our website. It's www.southasianibd.org. You can email us at info@southasianibd.org. We are happy to help and we welcome you all. There is absolutely nothing to be ashamed about. And we just want you to own your disease, own your Crohn's, own your UC, and feel like you can live the fullest life possible.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am, so much.
Thank you.